3 disturbing true camping horror stories. Story 1. The man circling my tent. And this happened 2 years ago during a solo camping trip in the Rocky Mountains. I've camped alone at least 15 times. I'm usually the kind of person who loves the peaceful isolation of the outdoors. But this trip, this one, changed the way I look at camping. I arrived at the trailhead later than I'd planned. I underestimated how long the drive would take, and by the time I reached the base of the trail, the sun was already beginning to dip behind the mountains. I remember thinking, whatever, I've set up camp in the dark before. The forest was unusually quiet. Even the birds and insects seemed muted. I hiked for about a mile before finding a small clearing, surrounded by tall pines. It wasn't an official campsite, but it had a flat patch of ground and a fire ring made of stones, so I figured others had used it before. I set up my tent, collected firewood, and cooked a basic meal. Just rice and some canned chicken. I was tired, but something about the air felt off. Not dangerous, just unsettling. As I was cleaning my pan, I noticed footprints in the dirt around my tent. And they were bare footprints, not hiking boots, not shoes, bare human feet. And they weren't fresh. Some were shallow, some deeper, like they were left at different times. They circled the tent completely, almost like someone had been pacing around the area. I told myself they must be old. Maybe someone camped here in the morning. But deep down, I knew that didn't make sense. The footprints didn't look faded by time or weather. I tried to ignore it. Around 9 p.m., the temperature dropped fast. I crawled into my tent, zipped myself into my sleeping bag, and listened to the forest. I always get a little nervous the first night, but this time it was worse. Every small noise sounded unnatural. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of footsteps. Slow, steady footsteps. They circled the outskirts of the campsite. I lay completely still. I told myself it was just an animal, maybe a deer, but the footsteps didn't sound like hooves. They sounded human. The weight, the pacing, the rhythm, all wrong for an animal. And then they stopped directly outside my tent. I could hear breathing. Long, deep inhales, slow exhales. It was unmistakably human. I didn't move a muscle. I stared at the tent wall as the silhouette of someone's head leaned in closer, like they were trying to listen to me breathing. Then, in a hoarse voice, so close that it sounded like it came from inches away, the person whispered, "I know you're awake." Every hair on my body stood up. I didn't respond. I didn't want to let this person know anything about me. My voice, my gender, anything. The footsteps resumed. They circled the tent again, then stopped. Then started again, then stopped. This went on for at least 20 minutes. I couldn't even unzip my sleeping bag without making noise, so I just waited. Eventually, the footsteps drifted farther away, then disappeared. I waited almost an hour before making a move. My heart was pounding the entire time. Finally, when the forest was quiet again, I slowly unzipped the back of my tent, the side facing the trees, and crawled out. I didn't take my gear. I just ran. No flashlight, no boots, nothing. Branches tore my skin. I tripped twice and scraped my arms badly, but I didn't stop until I saw my car. I got inside, locked the doors, and drove away without looking back. When I got home the next morning, I noticed something written on the back window of my car, smeared into the condensation and dirt. I watched you. Not I saw you. Not I was here. But I watched you. Someone had been observing me long before I heard the first footsteps. I've never camped alone again. Story 2. The Screams from the Lake. 3 years ago, I went camping with two friends, Jake and Mia, near Lake Vermilion in Minnesota. We weren't experts, but we'd done small camping trips before and wanted to do something farther from civilization. We arrived around sunset and set up our campsite about 30 feet from the lake. The water was calm, almost glass-like, and the woods surrounding us were thick. But not a normal scream. It was muffled, distorted, like someone screaming underwater. It echoed through the lake, humming in the water more than the air. Jake asked if maybe it was an animal, but we all knew no animal sounded like that. The most disturbing part was how long the scream lasted. Nearly 10 seconds before trailing off. Then silence. We stood there staring at the water, listening. Maybe a minute passed. Then another scream, louder, closer, angrier. I stepped back instinctively. Jake swung the flashlight across the lake. For a moment, everything looked normal, just calm water and trees. Then I saw it, a pale face floating on the surface of the lake. No hair visible, no body visible, just a face, swollen bluish, eyes wide open, staring straight at us. And it wasn't floating naturally. It wasn't bobbing with the waves. It stayed perfectly still, like something was holding it just beneath the water. Then it sank instantly, not like it drifted down, like it was yanked. We sprinted back to our tent. None of us slept. Every sound made us jump. Around 3 a.m., we heard footsteps outside. Not normal footsteps, wet, dragging footsteps. They moved slowly, leaving heavy thuds in the dirt between each step. Jake whispered that the steps were coming from the direction of the lake. Something stopped right outside the tent. We could see a shadow through the thin fabric, a tall person, hunched figure, completely still. After a few seconds, the zipper of our tent moved, only an inch, just enough to show someone or something was trying to open it quietly. The zipper slid back down on its own. The footsteps dragged away. None of us said a word until the sun came up. When it finally did, we grabbed our stuff and left. A month later, I found out someone had drowned in that lake earlier in the year while swimming at night. They never recovered the body. I don't know if what we saw was him, but whatever was screaming that night was still in the lake. Story 3: The empty campsite in the clearing. This happened in 2019. I've been hiking and camping since I was a teenager. I've seen mountain lions, bears, even a wolf once. Nothing ever scared me enough to make me stop camping. But something about this event made me rethink how I view the wilderness. I was hiking deep in a forest in Arizona, far off any official trail. I planned to explore a canyon a friend had recommended, and I had purposely taken a remote route to avoid people. After almost 2 hours of walking, I came across a clearing, and in the center of it was a campsite. At first glance, it looked normal. 2 tents, a fire burning, chairs set up, a pot boiling over the fire. But there wasn't a single person in sight. I called out a few times, thinking maybe the campers were behind the trees. No answer. As I walked closer, I realized how strange the scene was. One tent was unzipped halfway. Inside, 2 sleeping bags were laid out, still warm to the touch. Both phones were on cordable chargers. One phone even had a movie paused on the screen. Food was left out, not even touched. Nothing about the setup looked abandoned. It felt like the campers had stepped away for just a minute, but they hadn't taken a flashlight, not a weapon, not their phones, nothing. Why would 3 or 4 people walk off into the woods without anything? I picked up one of the phones lying on the ground near a log. On it, the last recorded video was only about 20 seconds long. It showed 2 guys sitting around the fire, laughing. They were talking normally when both of them suddenly stopped and looked past the camera, their expressions shifting from calm. The video ended abruptly. As I stood there trying to process this, I heard something around me, a whisper, very faint. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. Then I heard it from the opposite side of the clearing. Help us. It was coming from the trees. Not one voice, multiple, not loud, just barely audible, as if calling from a long distance. That's when I noticed the footprints. There were 4 sets leading away from the campsite. The first few were normal. Then they got deeper, as if the people were struggling or being pulled. Then they turned into drag marks. And then they simply stopped, right in the middle of the clearing. No prints leading out, no signs of running, just nothing. Like the group vanished into thin air. I backed away slowly and then turned and left, walking fast until I reached a main trail. I reported the campsite to the rangers. 3 days later, I heard on the news that 4 campers had gone missing in that area. Their campsite matched the one I found. None of them have ever been seen again. And sometimes at night, I still hear those whispers in my dreams.